Well, I think the origins of my book were really about betrayal. I was very interested by the theme of betrayal because when I thought about writing stories, I tried to think of the one thing that sort of connects all people. And, other than the obvious, love or hate or, food, I thought, what is the one thing that seems to have happened to all of us at one time? And for me, that was really betrayal. And I hadn't really read anything, that I could think of that really examined that in the kind of detail that I wanted to. And I didn't just want to do the obvious, marital, betrayal. I wanted to think of many different kinds of betrayal. So in my book, I cover, the betrayal of a mother to their child. I have a story about an actor who sort of betrays himself, so it's an artistic betrayal. And then there's the obvious, marital betrayal. So I think that was the origins. That was what I started out with. Originally, I didn't know that it was going to be as contained. It sort of became a novel in stories, and that the characters all sort of became intertwined, and they kind of became connected in some way. Originally, I didn't plan to do that. I thought they were going to be very disconnected. But then it just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller and more precise. The obvious cinematic reference is Rashomon, a story that's told 3 different ways. But I think everybody's life experience is so subjective. It's very interesting for me as a writer to imagine different points of view and how you can tell the same story from a different point of view, and also this idea that there are no real villains, that we're all betrayers and we're all betrayed. The first story of the book, the Harvest Moon, is about a betrayal that's already taken place, but the wife, Greta, doesn't know. So it's kind of like that situation where there's sort of an elephant in the room, and kind of everybody knows, as a reader, as you're reading it, I think you know that this betrayal has taken place, but she doesn't know. So later on, I really thought it would be interesting to write a letter, to imagine that this character was writing a letter to the woman that her husband had an affair with. And that was my original idea, but I didn't really want to write it just as a straight letter because I just thought that wouldn't be very interesting. So I ended up with this voice of, when it happens to you, and she's sort of describing what's happened to her as though it's happening to someone else. And I can't exactly explain how that voice happened. I feel like it was inspired a little bit by the David Byrne's Talking Head song, and you may ask yourself, which I've always felt like it was a very powerful song and always resonated with me, and I think it kind of influenced that story a little bit. My husband, Ponyo Giannopoulos, is a writer, and he's also was an editor before. So he was very helpful and instrumental in terms of my writing process. He just kept saying, 2 hours a day. I write very fast. I rewrite a lot, but my initial process, it comes out very fast. So he said, just commit yourself to 2 hours a day or 500 words, whichever comes first. And that little bite was manageable for me. The idea of sitting in front of my computer all day long, it's not even feasible anyway with 3 kids, but just the idea of it is sort of torturous. But 2 hours or 500 words I can manage. And very often I would write more than 500 words. And sometimes I would just squeak up to 500 words. I would be, 450, and some days those words were not very good. And I just knew that I would have to go back and rewrite them. But as long as I committed to that, it would just get done. I think the main thing is that you just commit to sitting in front of either your typewriter or your legal pad or your computer, which is in my case. I've always written fiction. I just didn't write fiction that I felt like I wanted to publish. I actually never imagined that I could, in a way. It was sort of like my little secret. It seemed, being an actor who writes, you know, you feel like there's all these preconceived notions about what you can and cannot do as an actor. So I kind of started out, you know, I dipped my toe in the water by writing nonfiction, and then kind of eased into what I really wanted to do, which is write fiction. And I love writing fiction. I find it much more satisfying, and I think it's probably because I'm an actor, and I've thought about character and creating character and what makes characters interesting my whole life. So it just seems sort of like a natural extension. I mean, I had fun writing my first book, and it was, you know, it was exactly what I wanted it to be. It was light and airy and stylish, and I kind of wanted to write this manifesto on you know, being a confident, you know, it woman rather than an it girl in our crazy youth-based society. So it was exactly what I wanted it to be, but I did find it difficult, particularly the part, you know, of giving style advice or any advice at all. I always sort of come to that, you know, why should anybody listen to what I have to say about that? You know, I have my own style, but why should, you know, I'd be telling anyone else what they should think? You know, and I didn't feel that when I was writing fiction. I was just creating story and character, and I just got very lost in the lives of these people, and really cared about them a lot. I mean, if somebody ever watched me while I was writing, I think they would be, well, my husband makes fun of me because he says that I have so much empathy for my characters. You know, I'll write and I'll get mad and cry, and, you know, I mean, I really feel like I love these people, and I miss them. You know, once I finished the book, it was like I had to say goodbye to these characters, and I felt like, you know, I'd been with them for so long, I really miss them.